Today on the show, I want to give you a couple of things to be encouraged by, give you something to think about, and then send you off with something that might just challenge you a little bit. Okay, let's get it. Well, hello everybody, Anthony here. Welcome back to another episode of the Single Parents Podcast, the podcast for anybody whose life may have turned out a little less than traditional. Before we get into the good, that is this week's episode, a few things I'd like to ask you to do. First and foremost, maybe consider subscribing to the podcast. That way you never miss an episode in the future. It's fast, it's easy, it's free. You could have done it by now. You did it. Cool. Great. Thank you. The next thing I would just ask is maybe consider sharing the podcast with the friend, with the family member, with the neighbor, with somebody who might need to hear some of the things we're going to break down in this week's episode and might be strengthened and built up by the words that we're going to share. So that would be great. And then last but not least, only do this if you think the podcast is worthy of it. You've listened all the way through and you think, yeah, this is good. Then what I would ask is maybe consider rating the podcast 5 stars, highest rating possible on your favorite platform. That way we can tell those algorithms out there that the show is legit and it passes it along to more people. All right. So as I mentioned in, I think episode 2 of this year's season 2025, I am currently in my daddy entrepreneur era, people. I am making calls. I'm building business plans. I'm reading documents. I'm doing all the things just because number one, I want to build up a really great life for me and my kids. So we're working towards some personal family goals. And then number 2, I just know that what I'm building is going to benefit and bring a lot of value to many families that I truly do want to help and work with going forward. Maybe specifically single parent families, because not to go into everything I brought up in that episode, you can go listen to it if you'd like. But long story short, there's just a lot of craziness going on in the world, and it's not easy just sometimes making it through the day, let alone the week or the month. And so I want to build up some stuff, build up my business, build up some things, build up a team. Oh, yeah. Build up a team of some people who can kind of help single parent families in particular thrive going forward. So anyways, not really going to get into that this week, but as I'm building myself up as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as somebody thinking towards success for me and for others, I've just been doing a lot of what I call personal development, a lot of getting a lot of coaching, getting a lot of inspiration, building my mindset up as somebody who is going to potentially work with and lead people. So stuff like that. And it's been really encouraging for me. It's been really inspiring to me. I've heard a lot of great things that just kind of given me not even just a boost of confidence, but the mentality to wake up every day and put my best foot forward as I look to step into all the things I'm stepping into. And I'll talk more later this year. But what I was thinking is, you know what? There's a few good golden nuggets that I think are really awesome. And I can't wait to share. I won't wait to share that I want to throw out to you, the listener, my fellow SPs, my fellow hot SPs out there. And so that's what this episode is going to be. It's just me taking some things I've been thinking through and encouraged by and working through in my own personal development and sharing them with you. And hopefully these will be some things that will maybe, number one, lift you up and help you hold your head high as you go throughout your day to day. But also just some things to really think about as you contemplate your family and your future and your goal and your aspirations and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to do. The first segment, I'm just going to share with you a couple of things that really encouraged me. Second segment, I'm just going to literally read some things that I just want you to think about. And I might not even talk that much about each point. I just want you to think about these questions I'm going to bring up. And then at the end of the show, I'm just going to give you maybe something to be challenged by, to really wrestle with going forward. So, for the couple of things I want to encourage you all with this week, I have my little notebook of inspirational quotes and things I'm learning and things that my notes as I'm getting coaching and development that I'll go back and I'll just read and I'll remember, especially on the days like, you kind of get down or discouraged or maybe just kind of forget some of the motivational stuff you've heard in the past. Like that's why I'm just trying to take good notes so I can remember. But so I have it in my trusty notebook, but here's one of the two things I want to encourage you single parent with. And that's this. Someday your story will be somebody else's survivor guide. Let me say that again, in case I need to get that a little cleaner. Someday your story will be somebody else's survivor guide. Single parent out there, have you thought about yourself as a potential influencer? And when I say influencer, I'm not really talking about, Instagram with 100 million subscribers or being TikTok famous and selling products through the screen to people. I'm not talking about like a bachelorette reality show star who's, use my code for 10% off this purse. Like, I'm not talking about that type of influencer. Maybe some of you will go on to be the next, who's the big influencer right now. I don't know. Simone Biles? Is she an influencer? No, she's an athlete. Why did I pick her name? Anyways, you get what I'm saying. Some of you might, but when I mean influencer, what I'm actually talking about is the fact that you may come across somebody, maybe next week, could be next month, next year, next 10 years, I don't know. But you might come across somebody who is at the very early stages of going through what you might be going through right now or going through something you've already gone through before. For us, as the context of single parents, that could be divorce, early stages of divorce they might be going through. They might be just in their early days of being a single parent in general. So for the first time, they're the only adult in the house. They have to figure out the bills themselves. They might even have to raise a child all by themselves. Or it might be going back to work for the first time in a long time. I don't know. But could be somebody who you come across who looks at you, who shares with you, hey, I'm brand new to XYZ experience. I'm scared, I'm confused, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm all these different things. And what's cool about life and what's cool about some of our trials is that those of us who have gone through some of those things that I mentioned in context to being a single parent have the ability to come alongside of individuals who might be in those circumstances and not just say, oh, well, like I know what it's like and you'll get through it or whatever, or not just give like vague platitudes or just, I call them like Twitter encouragement statements, just kind of like cliches, I guess most people call them, like these cliches, or just throw a Bible verse or something crazy at them. But instead, what we're able to do in this context is say, you know what, not only do I know what exactly you're feeling, what you're going through, all the emotions, all the reality, I know the fear, I know the loneliness that you're feeling, but I have gone through it to where now I'm on the other side of it, or at least coming to the other side of it, and I'm good. I've got it figured out. And that's not saying it's always easy to be in this context, to be a single parent, or to be in our situation sometimes, but I've put in the work, I put in the reps, I've made my way through the years of this being how things are, and I know the things maybe you need to do in order to endure and keep your head up and keep going. I know the practical things maybe that help me when it comes to budgeting and schedules and things of that nature. I've learned how when it comes to co-parenting, this kind of works for us, or maybe we tried this one thing and it didn't work for us, so don't do what I'm about to share with you. But we're able to use our stories, our trials, as a survivor guide for somebody who might be at the very early days of that situation. And to me, that's really encouraging. To me, it's really cool thinking back to myself, how long have I been a single parent? Like 5 or 6 plus years. It's been a while. Thinking back to those early days when my girls were little babies and they were still in the strollers, and I just remember one day, it was summer, pushing them to like this little splash pad that was kind of by our apartments and letting them play. And while they were playing, I was just trying to figure out my life and figure out next steps. And it was all just kind of foggy because, you go through life changing events like that, and it sometimes takes a while to even process what's going on. And so I just remember leaving the splash pad with them in the stroller. We get back to my apartment and they're like dead asleep because this was summer and they had worn themselves out in the summer sun. And I just remember staring at them and getting scared and be like, oh, like for half of the year, because we co-parenting, for half of the year, I'm raising these two little tiny girls by myself. And I have no idea what to do. I'm scared. I'm all these things, anxious. And it was a tough time. But now, after all this time, me being 6 years later removed, my girls are older now. They've grown. I've grown. Now, honestly, thinking through this not being my context, not being a single parent to those two girls, and it being any other way, just seems kind of weird to me, right? And maybe even a little scary to think about, like sharing my life with somebody after being single dad of two girls for all these years. Now this has become the norm. Now it's not so scary. Like, yeah, they terrify me every day because they destroy my house with their beauty products and their lip balms, and my daughter wants a big vanity for her room, and so she's pitching me on that all the time, and I got to figure that out. And just so there's realities that terrify me, just raising girls in general, but that's any parent. But looking back now, as I look back at that young, early in his parenting career dad, just got home from the splash pad. If I was having coffee with young version Anthony, I would just tell him, like, hey man, like, I know you're scared, I know you're intimidated, but it's gonna work out. It's gonna be all right. Let me tell you what some of my ups and some of my downs to kind of help you kind of see the journey that you're gonna go on, and hopefully my story, my testimony, whatever, uh, helps you a little bit. I heard this from somebody. I think they said it's like a Chinese proverb or something like that. I might screw it up, but I'm pretty sure the statement goes, if you want to know about the path you're about to embark on, speak to somebody coming back the other way. Something like that. But you get it. The whole concept is you're going down a road, you want to know what's the journey ahead, talk to somebody coming back who's already gone through the path, gone through the journey, and they'll be able to help you out. And so for some of us single parents, we're maybe in those later stages. Maybe our kids are grown and older, and we're no longer parents to young kids. And so we can come alongside of young kids and we can encourage them and do all these things. So I just ultimately think it's cool because it just shows that our stories, our hard days, our sufferings, the days we want to give up, they're not just for nothing, right? They're not just because life sucks and life is hard, because that feels like a lot of it sometimes, but we might be going through something right now to where, again, a year later, we're going to come across somebody who's going to be at the very early stages of that event and be like, oh, crap. I went through that. I can talk to them about that. I can hopefully help them with that. And to me, that just gives me some encouragement throughout the days in which it's tough and I want to give up. The next piece of encouragement I want to give you all comes from this statement I wrote to myself. It says, my dreams have to be bigger than my current emotions. Let's get that clean one more time. My dreams have to be bigger than my current emotions. This is for some parents out there, single parents out there who are like me, right? Who are, and we'll talk more about kind of this mindset at the end of the show, but who are thinking, you know what? I want to do some stuff to put some stuff in place. No more woe is me, sad single mom, sad single dad, lonely single mom, lonely single dad. Sure, that those days might come, but at the end of this day, today, right now, I'm about to put some stuff into place for me to make some positive changes for me and for my kids. And that could be going back to school. That could be starting a business. That could be trying to get a promotion in your current business. That could be stepping into maybe a new relationship, putting yourself out there, whatever it is. For some of us single parents, we're at a point where we're like, you know what? It's time to move forward. It's time to do some big things. It's time to be a badass single mom or a badass single dad today. So let's get to it. That quote I just read is something that I have to remind myself all the time, because it's sometimes very easy to be motivated to step into those big things when you're feeling good, and maybe you did just get out of like a life coaching session, or just listen to a cool podcast, or watch it's inspirational motivational video, and you're like, yes, I can do this, I got this. Or you see somebody else's social media account and you see where they're at in life, the things they're doing, and you're like, yeah, I want to be like that. It feels good. It feels good. But that type of, I call it like mountaintop experience motivation, usually only lasts for so long, right? Like you can usually only ride that wave for so long until the bad day hits, until the tough day hits, until your exhaustion hits, until your kids just are crazy and bouncing off the walls, and it's hard to study, or if it's hard to put in the work to start that business or to do the thing. Or maybe just wake up one day and just don't feel the fire, right? You just don't feel the motivation that you did the day before or the week before, and you constantly try to relight the fire, but it just gets harder and harder to do. Our dreams and goals and ambitions have to be bigger than our current emotions, because if we just rely on our current in the moment now emotions to dictate the progress we want to make, then it's either going to take a lot longer than maybe perhaps any other way for us to get to our goal, to get to where we want to go, because we're only taking a step forward when emotionally it feels good to take a step forward. So the days that we don't feel good, or the days where it's hard, or the days where it's too exhausted, or the days where you just don't want to do it, are just, you're just stagnant, right? You're just standing there. You're not moving anywhere. You're just staying in one spot. You're not moving forward at all. Or you're just going to give up, and you're just going to say, you know what? It's too hard. I thought I felt excited about this thing, about this goal, but man, so I'll just kind of, stick to my normal 9 to 5. I'll just stick to my old routine. I'll just stick to my old relationships. I'll just stick to what I've already been doing, because yes, that's hard, but at the end of the day, I guess it's like a familiar hard. I don't know. And then you just give up on your ambitions completely. So that's why your goals, what I've been thinking through with myself, my goals have to be rooted in something deeper, because it has to be rooted in a deeper foundation besides our current emotions, because that's what's going to keep us moving forward on those hard days. So that deeper motivation could be just your kids in general, and looking at them and wanting truly better for them. So for me, I always have like a picture of my girls, like an actual picture, not just on my phone, but an actual picture sitting next to my work computer. So when I don't feel like writing that email, or I don't feel like getting in front of the camera, making a podcast and having to edit it and doing all these things, or just anything for my business, or don't want to open my book and read my book to study, I look at my picture of them, and I remember that, hey, don't forget, you're doing this for them, because part of my goal is, my kids are 8 and 9 years old. My goal is, by the time they're teenagers, so in the next 4 to 5 years, we want to be hitting certain milestones as a family to prepare for the realities of me raising teenage girls and their needs, and we want to travel and we want to do all these things. So I look at the picture of them and I'm like, okay, nope, I know you don't feel like writing that email or reading that book or editing this podcast, but you know what? Your motivation's in something deeper than your feelings, so you got to get back to work. So that's for me. Or to be honest, sometimes I use my chip on my shoulder as my motivation, right? Because at the end of the day, there's been people in my life who, actually throughout many times in my life, who have maybe discounted me a little bit, who I would share my ideas and ambitions, and for better or for worse, maybe they just didn't work out, but I could just tell, like, maybe they just didn't fully believe that I was serious and could do it. Or maybe I did share that with them and they got excited for a while, but then they just chose to not want to be in my life anymore or choose to be with somebody else over me. Just all these different type of things. So that chip on my shoulder of like, you know what? Like, no, 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 we're going to stay up late and we're going to work on this project or we're going to write this business plan, because how great is it going to feel to show the doubters, to show the people who didn't believe, to show the people who chose to walk away that Anthony is pretty legit. Oh, maybe I should have stuck around, or maybe I should have believed in him, or he actually accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. And I don't think that's anything wrong in that, because ultimately what I'm choosing to do in those times is put my trust and my belief in myself and be like, Anthony, you gotta believe in yourself. Even though you don't want to do this thing, you gotta believe in yourself. You gotta move forward, because there's nobody else here with you right now. Nobody else is putting in the work. Nobody else is making the phone calls. Nobody else is making a game plan. You're here for you. So you have to show up and do this for you. You got to show up to prove the doubters wrong. You got to show up for your kids. You got to do all these things. So you see, and there's lots of different other things that you can do to really motivate yourself like that. But those are just a couple of things that I choose to do. Is that, and also, what I chose to do also that really helps on the hard days is that I have sat with my girls multiple times and I tell them my plans and my ambitions and my dreams, and I invite them to share some of their goals and as a family and what they would like, and to let them know, like, hey, this is what I'm working towards. I want you guys to really, as much as you can for your context as 8 and 9 year olds, understand this, because what that does for me is that they're very good at giving me some real accountability, because the days I don't want to show up for a Zoom, the days I don't want to put in the work and do the things I'm supposed to do, they're going to be the ones who be like, no, dad, you got to do the work, because you said that in so many years we're going to buy a house, or we're going to be able to do this or that, and we have these goals as a family. So, whether they come or not, can't let that be determined on the fact that you just didn't want to put in the work. So, I mean, they don't say it like that, but for example, part of the business I'm stepping into requires a state license. And so as I was studying for my state license, I brought them in to the studying session. And I had them help me take my practice test, and they were there with me. And every time I got a score on my practice test lower than what I wanted, they would be there to be like, Dad, man, you only got a 70 on that test. You need to do better tomorrow. You need to study more. Or they would just really coach me. And so the days where my score would go up every single day, I would work through those practice tests. They were there to encourage me and to be like, yeah, Dad, good. And that was great motivation, because number one, it helped them see that I'm putting in the work that I'm supposed to be putting in for myself. So when I encourage them at school and as they're working through their own test scores and stuff like that at school, they're able to see, like, okay, I need to work on this. It's not always easy, but I know my dad's at home doing the same studying and putting in the same work to pass these tests as I am. So we're all in this together. But like I said, the days when I just don't feel like it, my emotions just aren't there, they're there to say, Dad, nope, we got to put in the work. We're going to put in the work as a family, because we're going to win as a family. And that's pretty awesome. So to conclude, remember, single parent, and be encouraged by the fact that what you're going through right now might truly be a survivor's guide for somebody else in the future, might truly help somebody else in the future. And single parent, remember right now, and be encouraged by the fact that right now, that what you're working towards, it's big, it's awesome, it's amazing. I know it is. You got this. So let whatever it is you're working towards be bigger than your current emotional state. So that way, during the hard days, you can pick yourself back up. You can hold your head high and remember that, no, I'm working towards something amazing and I'm not going to give up. We're going to do this thing and I'm going to win. Single parents, that's you. Go out and do it. So for this next segment, as I mentioned earlier, this is the part where I just want to give you all something to think about. So I have a list of questions that I've been thinking through for myself as I've been trying to grow and strive forward. And so I know I did a whole lot of yapping that first segment, but this segment is for you. Segment is for you to really do some self-reflection. So, but before we get into that, let's let's just pause. Let's slow down a little bit, and let's slow down my talking a little bit. And let's just take a breath together. Breathe in. Breathe out. Okay? If you can, maybe stop. If you're listening to this while you're doing other stuff, maybe stop and pause for a few minutes. If you're thinking about other things while you're trying to also listen to this podcast, maybe just try to clear out your head a little bit. I'm going to ask you some questions. I just want you for yourself to think about these questions, and then we'll move on to the final segment. My first question to you is, what is most important to you? My second question to you, single parents, is what are your goals? My third question to you, single parent, is what is it going to take for you to reach your goals? Think about that. My next question to you, single parent, is what is your plan to get you there? What is your plan to get you to your goals? Now, this is going to be big, so I really want you to think about this one. Next question. Will your current state get you to where you want to go? I'm going to read that again because I really want you to think about this one. Will your current state get you to where you want to go? Where you are right now, what your day-to-day looks like, what your habits look like, what your mindset looks like, all of those things. Where you are right now, is that going to get you there? Just be honest with yourself. Answer that question, and then answer this question, maybe yes or no. Are you content with that? Are you content with the fact that your current state right now is set up for you to get to where you want to go? Or are you content with the fact that maybe your current state right now is not properly set up for you to reach your goals and to follow your dreams? Are you content with that? Because it's easy to have goals. It's easy to have ambitions. It's easy to recognize that maybe to get to those goals and hit those ambitions, things need to change, but nothing's really going to happen, right? Unless you decide you're not content with the fact that maybe where you're at isn't properly equipping you to succeed for yourself. Because if you're content with where you are, then you're going to remain where you are. Think about those questions. Go back and rewind the segment of the podcast, and if you need to listen to those questions again, really think about those questions. And then if you need some extra time, pause the podcast right now. Maybe write down those questions and answer them in a notebook or something like I have. Think about those questions, and then when you're ready, we're going to move on to the next segment and talk about that reality of contentment and the idea of healthy change. Single parents, if you made it this far into the episode, this is a segment we like to call Deeply Single. This is the deep end of the show where we get a little real, we get a little deep, we maybe even get a little intimate, and we have some real talks as hot as peas. So I'm just going to share you a story first, a story that's really stuck with me that my buddy Jerry shared with me a couple of weeks ago. Well, he shared it to a group. He's in the same line of business that I'm building. So as we were having a little cohort, a little brainstorming / strategy session, he shared this story and I thought it was really good, and I'm going to share it and then we'll talk about it. He shared the story of a little fish and a little pond. Now, this little fish was born and raised essentially in this little pond, and he lived at the very bottom. There was like a nice little assortment of rocks at the bottom that formed a little cave that he could chill in and live in, and then he could come and go, and it was safe and it was nice. The same stuff every day, but he had his little safe, little typical life in this little itty bitty pond. Was the pond the nicest? No. Was the pond the biggest? Definitely not. Was it the cleanest? Did it have the best food? No. But it was what the fish knew, and it was there. It was the same. It was familiar. One day, as the fish was bored, he went up to the surface of the pond, and he got extra curious, and he peeked his little head out of the water and began to look around for as long as he was able to breathe the air. And he looked, and he saw just over the way a little bit, over a little patch of grass, not too far, there was another pond. And this pond was bigger from what he could see. The water looked cleaner, it looked more active. There's a bigger swarm of bugs around this pond, more food for this little fish. So, what this fish could gather was that, oh my gosh, right over there, just right over the distance, there's something better. There's maybe a better life. There's more resources. There's something over there. I think I want to work towards. I want to get to. Right, right. So the fish went back down to his little cave, and he thought for a while. He thought about the bigger, better pond. He thought about what it would take to get to that pond. He thought about the life that he would have over in that pond. And he would begin telling his friends, like, oh, yes, I want to get to that pond. It's such a great dream. It's going to be amazing. Once I'm over in that pond, I'm going to do XYZ. I'm going to learn how to do backflips because I'll have more space because that pond is better. I'm going to get so full on all those bugs. And he would just yap and yap and yap and yap. But day after day would go by, and that fish still remained in his typical, familiar, usual pond that he grew up in. So eventually his friends stopped listening to him talk about the bigger, better pond, and kind of just like dismissed him because they could only hear him yap about, oh, one day I'll get there, one day I'll get there, for so long. But he was still the same exact place they were. Same small, dirty pond. And this went on for a while. And until the fish went up and looked out of the water one more time and saw that big, beautiful pond over the yonder. And he looked back at his small, dirtier pond. Not a bad pond, but nothing compared to what was over that patch of grass. And he finally realized, you know what? If I don't start putting in some real work, if I don't start making some real change, then it doesn't matter how much I talk about that pond over there, I'm still going to remain here in this pond that I grew up in my whole life. And I don't want to stay in this pond forever. I truly do believe I'm meant for that big pond over there. So eventually, the thought of staying in his tiny, typical pond one more day was just too much for him. He couldn't even fathom the idea of staying in this pond for one more day. So he swam his little fish body over to the edge of his pond, and he hopped onto the patch of grass, and he flopped around for a little while, and it was hard and it was scary, and he felt like he was going to suffocate, and he thought he was going to die, and it was intense, but he still kept flopping forward, and it was just, and then finally, splash. He was in the other, bigger, better pond, and he looked around and he saw how truly magnificent it was in this new body of water. All the bugs he could eat, plenty of room to swim around, new great fish he could talk to and hang out with. The water was a lot cleaner in this new pond. So let's break that story down. Why has that story stuck with me? Why do I love that story? Because it's often our story as people, as dreamers, right? As single parents who want more for ourselves, for our kids, for our family, for our lives. It's easy to sit down and set a goal and look at that goal and be like, yes, that's it. That's the big pond. Whether your big pond is starting a business, whether your big pond is maybe getting a promotion or getting a relationship, or whatever your big pond is. Maybe it's just fitness goals, whatever it is. You have your big pond in mind, your ambition in mind, what you want to strive for in mind. And it's easy to look and see, I can see it over there, and talk the talk and share it with your friends and family, and just say, yeah, one day I'm going to hit there. One day I'm going to hit that goal. One day I'm going to hit that goal, and do all that, and yet remain in the same spot day after day, year after year, with no actual forward movement or progress. Why is that? Why is it that we find ourselves stuck like that sometimes? I think it's truly because the reality of actually moving forward and making some real change is freaking scary, right? Let's just be honest. It's scary and sometimes really, really hard for the fish to get to from the small little pond to the big awesome pond. You remember? He had to go through this patch of grass where he felt like he was literally about to die. He didn't know if he was going to make it. That patch of grass, that middle part from A to B, is scary, and the thought of stepping into that is pretty intense. And so even though we might want to hit the big pond and move forward, we instead be like, you know what? Even though my current state, my current little pond isn't the best, maybe it's tough in this state to pay the bills. Maybe it's tough in this state to feel healthy and motivated. Maybe it's tough in this state to feel worthy. Maybe it's tough in this state to whatever it is. Even though it might be tough, it's familiar. It's something I know, at least. It's something I know how to like manage. Over there, the unknown, that's intense. That's scary. But here, even though it might suck, at least it's familiar, and at least it's what I know. We've all hit that point. We've all felt those feelings, the fear that is taking the first step. And I think what separates people, though, are the people who just remain in the same little pond because the idea of making the change was just too much and they just weren't able to do it. So they stay. That's why you see some people living in the same house, doing the same things, same broken relationships in and out with unhealthy people. Is because the idea, let's just take a relationship, the idea of doing the work, going to therapy, bettering myself so I can know how to healthily attract a positive, good person in my life to be in a relationship. That's going to take work. That seems a little intense because maybe there's some stuff within me that I need to work through it's going to be kind of scary to work through those things or to bring up some of that trauma to work through it. So instead, even though it sucks, I'm going to keep going to the same toxic relationships over and over and over because that's just what I'm familiar with. That's where my thermostat is set, right? Like you walk into a house and you usually have the temperature in your house, how you like it, how you're used to it. But then you go to somebody else's house and it's maybe hotter or colder and you point it out like you're used to your own thermostat. And so maybe for these people, their thermostat is just set at toxic because it's what they know. But to do the work to get out of that rhythm, it might just be a lot. So they just, whether they know they're doing it intentionally or not, they stay the same. Versus the people like the little fish who understand it's going to be tough. It's going to take some work. It might be a little scary. Who look over and see the big pond, and then they look at their current life and they say, like, I can't take one more day living how I am. I can't take one more day putting myself in toxic relationships that harm me and my kids. I can't take one more day not being able to afford the bills. I got to figure something out. I can't take one more day feeling like crap when I get out of bed. I got to start making some health changes. I can't take one more day in this little pond. I have to make some changes. So this happens when the thought of staying the same becomes a greater fear than the idea of actually making some change, right? So we have the balance of the scales. Either way, it's going to be hard and difficult. You have the hard and difficult aspect of staying the same and dealing with crap, or you have the hard and difficult over here of putting in some work, stepping into the unknown, but making some progress. Either way, it's going to be hard. So we just have to choose which hard do we want. Do we want to be in the hard in our current reality forever, or do we want to endure through the hard that hopefully will lead us into the bigger and better pond? Single parents, you're going to have to make that decision. You're going to have to think that through for yourself, for your kids, for your household. Where are you at? Which fish are you? Are you the fish that is just content with staying in your current typical pond? Or are you the fish that can't stay there any longer and needs to do the work and needs to progress and needs to make some changes. And maybe the pond that you're in is fine. It's good. It's legit. Maybe you love the pond that you're in. So I don't want to poo-poo the idea of staying exactly where you are, because maybe you're in a pretty good spot. Maybe you are making a good amount of money and your health's good and your job is good. And so you don't need to go crazy. So maybe that's you. That's great. That's awesome. But this is more for the person who needs to be real and honest with themselves and truly be truthful with the fact that, is your current reality really great? Is it? Or maybe you put it out that it's great, or maybe on social media it's so great, but in reality, is it truly great? Are you truly content? Are you truly fine with the thought of staying exactly where you are right now for another 5 or 10 years going forward? Are you really okay with that? Be honest with yourself. I'm going to challenge you to think about that for yourself. And if the answer is no, Anthony, it's not great, it's a crappy little pond, I'm stuck, then my next question to challenge you with is, okay, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep talking? Are you going to keep just dreaming? Are you going to keep looking over at the big pond over there but not actually doing anything? Or are you going to take some steps forward to make some change, to make some progress, to get to where you want to go? I can only ask you these questions. I can't force you to do anything. I can't obviously force you to do anything or do the work for you. This is just questions I had to ask for myself. And this came at the end of last year. I just basically did a self-assessment at the end of 2024 and just looked at my life and my house and my finances and my kids and my mindset and all the things. And I just realized, like, Anthony, like, things are all right. Like, the little pond that you're in right now, you're content. You're able to pay your bills. Are you able to go and travel and go on vacations or do anything really extracurricular? No, not really. But, you're doing it, I guess. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with staying where you are, doing the same thing another 2, 3, 4 years, being in the same spot, making the same amount of money, maybe little 50-cent raise here or there, depending on the annual review? Or are you going to be proactive right now? And are you going to look and try to find the big pond that it's going to be better and best for you and your family? And are you going to put in the work to head in that direction? For me, I was able to answer that question. I was able to decide I couldn't stay one more day, another year in the little pond. Even though some people might think I'm crazy. Like, they might think, Anthony, why rock the boat? Why make some changes? Why put all this extra stress on yourself to start a business and to do all these things? You just said you were able to pay your bills. You were able to figure it out. Why not just be okay with just doing that? Like, the fish's friends who were probably in the exact same pond that they grew up in and didn't make any real progress. They're going to say, like, why not just be fine? Why not just be content? It's just because I just had to do that assessment for myself and my own family and be like, I know to other people you might be fine, but for me and my house, no, we got some big goals to hit. We got some things we want to do. So in 5 years, if you're cool just still being in the same spot, that's awesome. Good for you. But for me and my kids, we'll just holla at you from from the beach or Italy or something like that. So what's it going to look like for you, single parent? Think about all these questions, all this stuff I brought up on today's show. I want to challenge you to really wrestle with these ideas, what it might take for you to make some positive first steps. And if you need to process any of this, if you need to think through any of this, if you want maybe ideas on how you can make some cool steps, especially if you finances and career wise, you might be thinking of a change, keeping your options open. As I kind of keep teasing, I'm building something up myself, and I'm definitely going to need a team of some hot SPs and some agents in the future. I'll kind of spoil a little bit. Some people who are just ready to make some big changes with me, because I truly believe what I'm building, it's going to change a lot of people's lives, but I can't do it all myself. So if that's you, I'll just throw it out there. If that's you and you're like, Anthony, I do want to make some big changes, let's talk. What do you got going on? Then I'm just going to throw my email out and see what happens. It's the singleparentspodcast@gmail.com. That's the singleparentspodcast@gmail.com. Hit me up. We can talk for the rest of you, keep thinking, keep striving, keep moving forward. I love you all. I hope this episode really encouraged you a little bit. I hope it gave you some stuff to think through and wrestle through a little bit. I hope you got to see my heart through sharing some of these things with you. I hope this didn't come off like too abrasive or anything. I love you all, and I want the best for you and your families. And so I just want to just make sure that we're all pushing each other to be the best hot SPs that we can be. Got it? Good. Awesome. You guys are the best. With that, that's going to bring it to the end of another episode of the Single Parents Podcast. One more time, my name's Anthony, and until next time, you all out there, just stay beautiful. Bye.